80,000 fans, one winner, and the entire stadium booing. Not the loser, the winner. Kyle Busch just crossed the finish line, and the crowd wanted him gone. This isn't just a story about a man people dislike. This is about what NASCAR never told you. The rage, the rivalries, the incident that should have ended his career forever, but somehow didn't. Every driver has enemies, but Kyle Busch didn't just make enemies. He made an entire sport turn against him. So today, we're asking the question nobody in NASCAR wants answered. Is Kyle Busch truly the villain, or is he the most misunderstood man in motorsport history? Stay till the end. The truth will shock you. Kyle Thomas Busch, born May 2nd, 1985, Las Vegas, Nevada, a city built on risk, on gambles, on people who either win big or lose everything. And from the very beginning, now Kyle Busch was built the same way. His older brother Kurt Busch was already making waves in NASCAR. And little Kyle, he was watching, studying, waiting for his moment. By age 13, he was already racing go-karts and dominating every track he touched. By 16, he was turning heads in the NASCAR Regional Series. And by 18, he was in the Cup Series, the youngest driver in NASCAR history at that time. Let that sink in. 18 years old. Competing against men who had been racing for decades. Most teenagers are worried about high school. Kyle Busch was trading paint at 180 miles per hour. Hendrick Motorsports signed him immediately. One of NASCAR's most powerful teams. They saw something in this kid from Las Vegas. Raw talent, fierce aggression, and an obsession with winning that made everyone around him uncomfortable. Because here's the thing about Kyle Busch that nobody talks about in the early years. He didn't just want to win. He needed to win. And when he didn't, the mask came off. Teammates noticed it, crew members whispered about it, and soon, the entire NASCAR paddock would feel it. This was just the beginning. By 2005, Kyle Busch wasn't just racing. He was destroying. Wins started piling up, records started falling, and the NASCAR world had a decision to make. Celebrate this kid, or fear him. They chose fear. See, most drivers win with a smile. They thank their sponsors, wave to the crowd, say the right things in interviews. They play the game. Kyle Busch refused to play the game. When he won, he celebrated like the world owed him something. When he lost, he made sure everyone in that garage knew exactly how he felt. Crew members, engineers, other drivers, nobody was safe from his anger. In 2008, Hendrick Motorsports made a shocking decision. They let Kyle Busch go. One of the most talented drivers on their roster. Gone. Joe Gibbs Racing picked him up immediately. And that's when things got really dark. 2009. Kyle Busch wins 4 Cup races, 7 Xfinity races, and 5 Truck Series races in a single season. Numbers that were almost impossible. Numbers that should have made him the most loved man in NASCAR. Instead, the boos got louder. Because winning wasn't enough for Kyle Busch. It was how he won. Aggressive moves, bumping competitors, taking risks that put other drivers in danger. Ron Hornaday, Joey Logano, Jeff Gordon. One by one, enemies were made. And one incident with Ron Hornaday would cross a line that NASCAR had never seen crossed before. But we'll get to that. Now, we get to the part NASCAR wished you'd forget. November 2011, Texas Motor Speedway, Truck Series race. Ron Hornaday was having the race of his life, leading the championship. One good finish away from securing the title he had worked his entire career to win. Then Kyle Busch happened, deliberately, intentionally. On purpose. Kyle Busch drove his truck directly into Hornaday's vehicle. Not a racing incident. Not a mistake. A calculated move that destroyed Hornaday's race and his championship. The NASCAR garage went silent. Even Kyle Busch's own supporters couldn't defend it this time. NASCAR responded immediately. They parked Kyle Busch for the rest of the weekend, banned him from competing. A punishment that shocked everyone, because NASCAR almost never does that. But here's what the headlines missed. Ron Hornaday was 52 years old. That championship was likely his last real shot. Kyle Busch didn't just wreck a car that day. He potentially ended a man's dream, permanently. And when reporters asked Kyle about it, his response was cold, calculated, almost emotionless. No genuine remorse, no real apology, just carefully chosen words designed to make the story disappear. But the story didn't disappear, because 2 years later, another incident. Then another. A pattern that was becoming impossible to ignore. Teammates speaking off the record. Garage staff refusing to work with him. sponsors quietly having conversations behind closed doors. Something was deeply wrong, and the sport knew it. But nobody had the courage to say it out loud. But wait. Before you make your final judgment on Kyle Busch, there's a side to this story that almost nobody covers, a side that changes everything. 2015, Daytona, early in the season. Kyle Busch goes into a wall at full speed. Massive crash. His right foot and left leg shattered on impact. Doctors looked at the damage and said something that stopped everyone cold. They said he might never race again. And here's where the narrative starts to crack. Because the man who cried in victory lane, the man who screamed at crew members, the man NASCAR fans had written off as pure villain, that same man spent months in rehabilitation refusing to quit, refusing to accept that his career was over. He came back, against every medical prediction, against every doubt. And when he returned to that track, something was different. Former rivals started speaking differently about him. Jeff Gordon, a man Kyle had battled bitterly for years, publicly acknowledged Kyle's toughness, his dedication, his love for the sport. Crew members who had struggled with his temper admitted something quietly. Kyle Busch pushed everyone hard because he pushed himself harder than anyone. And then came the confession nobody expected. Kyle Busch publicly admitted struggling with pressure, with expectations, with the weight of being the most hated man in a sport he loved more than anything. Villain, maybe. But victims don't fight back from shattered bones to chase championships. The real Kyle Busch was somewhere between the monster the crowd booed and the fighter nobody wanted to respect. So, here we are. 6 sections, 1 man, and a question that still doesn't have a clean answer. Is Kyle Busch a villain? The evidence says yes. The Hornaday incident alone should have defined his legacy permanently. The rage, the arrogance, the pattern of putting wins above people. But is he also something more complicated than that? Absolutely. Because the same obsession that made him dangerous on the track also made him one of the greatest drivers NASCAR has ever produced. 2 Cup championships, over 200 wins across all 3 series, numbers that may never be matched. The crowd never stopped booing Kyle Busch. But here's the uncomfortable truth they never admitted. They never stopped watching him either. Because love him or hate him, Kyle Busch made NASCAR impossible to ignore. He was the villain the sport never asked for. But somewhere deep down, the villain the sport desperately needed. The dark truth behind NASCAR's most hated driver isn't that he was evil. The dark truth is that he was human, deeply, painfully, uncomfortably human. And none of us, not the fans, not the sport, not even Kyle Busch himself, knew what to do with that. I'm leaving the final verdict to you. Drop it in the comments. Was Kyle Busch a villain or the most misunderstood champion in NASCAR history? See you in the next one.